All right, welcome everyone. Today, our topic is population pyramids. And so, our objectives for today are that you are going to be able to explain how population pyramids show us the structure of a country's population, and that you can compare and interpret population pyramids. Along with the lecture and along with the content today, you will be doing an assignment, which I'll also explain in this video, which is the population pyramid activity. So when we talk about a population pyramid, you are looking at one right over here. This is a population pyramid of the United States in 2021, so just last year. And you'll notice that a population pyramid basically looks like a bunch of lines kind of stacked on top of each other, or a bunch of bars that are stacked on top of each other. And essentially, a population pyramid is a bar graph that has been turned over on its sides to show every single person that is part of that country, that is included in the population of the country. And so I'll kind of show you a little bit about how this is done, as well as talk about what the different shapes of population pyramids tell us about the structure of a country. Before we jump into that, just a couple of reminders of what we focused on last week. So one of the big questions that we've been asking ourselves is, why does population increase at different rates in different countries? So why are some countries growing at really large rates? Why are some countries shrinking? Why are some countries growing at really small rates? So all countries experience changes in NIR. NIR is the natural increase rate, and fertility rates, infant mortality rate, but oftentimes at different times and at different rates. And so you did the World Population GeoInquiry last week, and you noticed that countries have a wide variety of different natural increase rates. Some countries are growing really fast. Some countries are growing really slow. Some countries are actually shrinking, meaning their natural increase rate of growth is actually negative. You also took a look at fertility rates, the number of babies born per woman in any given, on average. We saw that in most countries, fertility rates are dropping. Women are having less children. There were some exceptions, but most places fertility rates are going down, or they're already pretty low. But there are still some countries where fertility rates are pretty high, even though they are still dropping. Infant mortality rate is the rate of death of infants under the age of 1. So it's the general process that all countries go through. We refer to, and I just noticed that this isn't correct, but we refer to this as the DTM. And sorry. There we go. So I just got to change this. So the general process that all countries go through is referred to as a demographic transition model. And we also learned about that last week. So the demographic transition model is the model that shows us that there are varying changes in birth rate and death rate throughout time. And so with that, some countries, or for most of human history, countries had very high birth rates and eventually and pretty high death rates. Then the death rates fell. So death rates fell first because of improvements in medicine, in agriculture, and people started dying at a slower rate. But the birth rate still remained high. So because of this, the population grew, and then as birth rates eventually fell to match death rates, population growth slowed down. But anytime we had a big difference between the birth rates and the death rates, that's where we're going to see huge amounts of population growth. And that's really what happened to the entire world as many regions and countries transitioned through this demographic transition, transitioned to the later stages, their population really boomed. So where a country is in its demographic transition gives us a unique population structure. So what do we talk about when we talk about population structure? Well, we're going to use population pyramids to tell us about that structure. They also can tell us about past, current, and future growth. When we talk about population structure, we're talking about what ages are people in the population. Do we have a lot of elderly people? Do we have a lot of babies and young people? Do we have a lot of middle-aged people? And we also can take a look at, on one side, the male population versus the female population. So when we analyze population pyramids, we pay close attention to the bottom and the top of the graph. So I'm just going to explain how this works. But on the left-hand side here, we're looking at age ranges. So these are 5-year age bands. So our 0 to 4-year-olds are represented by this bar here. So think of a bar graph that you might see the bars go up and down. These bars are just turned over into the side. And the population starts at 0 in the middle here, all the way, and it goes the same on both sides. So this one goes into the 12.5 to 15 millions, and on either side. So if we took a look at this, we could see that in the United States in 2021, there were just over 10 million boys that were ages 0 to 4. And there were also just over 10 million females that were 0 to 4. So as we go up these age bands, the population that's being represented is older till we get all the way up to our 100 plus year olds. And so you'll see this is the amount of about 100 plus year olds in the US population in the year 2021. So we can use these individual lines to tell us how many boys and girls, males and females, are in the population at a certain age. But more importantly, the population pyramids tell us the actual shape of the population pyramids tell us a lot about what's going on in the country. Are people having a lot of children? Are people dying at really high rates? Is it a really young population or is it a really old population? So when we take a look at these, we are going to notice that there are some kind of basic shapes that you're going to want to recognize when you're taking a look at population pyramids. The first basic shape is, just like the name is, a pyramid. It has a wide base. That last one we took a look at, that didn't really have a huge wide base. So I wouldn't definitely not say the United States is a pyramid shape. But as we take a look at some population pyramids that do have very wide bases, this is telling us that these countries are growing really fast because there's a lot of children compared to the rest of the population. They have high birth rates. And in general, they have a lower life expectancy. So they're not living as long. The next shape is more of the box shape. I would say the United States, the one we just took a look at, although there's these ins and outs, we're never going to get a 100% box-like structure, but the United States is pretty box-like. Eventually, it's always going to turn into a pyramid on the top because people are always going to die, but they're pretty straight up and down. There's not a huge young age population, but it's not really, really narrow on the bottom either. So the box shape tells us that we have a low natural increase rate, birth rates are relatively low, and there's a relatively high life expectancy. And the reason we can tell this, going back here, is that we don't have tons of babies being born, right? Remember that the people having the children are kind of right here. So there's not tons and tons of babies being born. We probably have a total fertility rate of 2 or under. But we also don't see really, really low birth rates. So the last shape is the cup shape. This is when the base of the population pyramid is significantly smaller than the rest of the population pyramid. And we'll take a look at some examples, but this is going to show us very low birth rates. It's going to show us pretty high life expectancy. A lot of the population is elderly or older people. And it's also going to show us that this country is probably eventually going to shrink. So we're going to take a look at this population pyramid. This is of Afghanistan in 2021. So the first question you want to think about is, what shape is this? Is this a pyramid shape? Is this a box shape? Or is this a cup shape? So I'll give you a second to think of that. If you said that this is a pyramid shape, you are right. In Afghanistan, a large portion of the population is down here, which means that they have a very young population. That's going to mean that they're going to have high natural increase rates, which means they're growing really fast. They have high birth rates, and they're probably going to have lower life expectancies. All right, so we already talked about the United States. I define the United States as more of a box shape. I know it's not a perfect square or perfect box, but it is pretty similar up and down. All right, this is Argentina. So ask yourself, what shape is this? So one thing you'll notice here is Argentina does have a very wide base. And so you may have said that this was a pyramid shape. And if you said that, you would have been correct. But you'll also notice that as compared to Afghanistan, that really has this very stark contrast between the base and the top. Argentina is starting to round out on the end. You'll notice that there are almost less children in the 0 to 4 age range than there are in the 5 to 9, meaning that children are living long. They're not, they probably have lower infant mortality rate, but people are maybe going to start having less children in the future. And so it is transitioning between a pyramid and a box. So if you think about countries moving through the demographic transition model, Argentina is probably a stage 3 country. Their birth rates are beginning to drop. They don't have as high birth rates as the country Afghanistan did. And then this last population pyramid is Italy. What do you notice about Italy? What shape do you think Italy is? All right, if you said cup, that is correct. It is a cup shape. It has a very, very narrow base and a very kind of heavy top. Eventually, like I said, it's always going to end up being a pyramid at the top because eventually all people do die. But it has a narrow base representing the fact that there are very few, very, very low birth rates and less children are being born. They're also going to eventually, as this chunk of population dies off, they are eventually going to lose population. They are losing population due to the fact that people their birth rates are just incredibly low. All right, the last thing you're going to do before you start the assignment, which I'm going to explain in a minute, is you are going to watch this this population pyramid video. It'll explain a little bit of what I just talked about. It'll just be a good additional information to help you on your way. But before we move on, you have an assignment that goes along with the population pyramid, and it is the population pyramid activity. I'm going to open this up, and here's the assignment. So really quickly, please write all your answers in full sentences. Points will be taken off if you do not. And you are going to be opening up this website. So when you get to this website, it looks like this. You are going to have access to a bunch of data and population pyramids of all the countries in the world. So the first thing it's going to ask you to do when you click on it, it's going to bring you to the world. And the first question says, what is the annual growth rate of the world? So you are going to find that by looking here. Okay, so the annual growth rate is 0.9%. That means every year we grow by 0.9%. And then what is predicted to happen to the annual growth rate? Will the world population grow at a faster or a slower rate? So you'll notice that there is this chart here that shows the annual growth rate, and you'll notice that it's going down. So you would say, for this first couple questions, you would say 0.9% for the first one, and then you would say that the annual growth rate is decreasing, it's going down. So eventually, our world population may not be growing as fast as it was. Then you're going to go to the top left corner where it says select country by region. When you get up there, you are going to find, let's see here, select country by region. You're going to start with finding China. If you can't find it, it is alphabetical, but you can also type it in here. So I'm going to type in China. And it's going then to bring me to China. So I'm going to be taking a look at China's population pyramid. And China's population pyramid is, let's see here, you're going to say, what shape is China's population pyramid? This is a little bit of a tricky one. because it is all over the place. So you'll notice that there's lots of bumps, but you're going to try your best to say, do you think China's population pyramid is a pyramid, a box, or a cup? Then what you're going to do is you're going to, let's see here. You are going to say, what does this tell you about their growth rate? You may want to look back at your notes for that. And then it says, play the population pyramid animation. How does the population pyramid change as you go forward in time? So what you're going to do there is you're going to actually play the button, and you're going to see that population pyramid is going to change, and you're going to describe how it changes over time. And if it looks like China's population is going to shrink or grow. So these last two questions are really about the future of this country. Then you're going to move on to Nigeria, to Japan, and then a country of your choice. So choose any country you want to take a look at. So that is the population pyramid assignment and lesson. Let me know if you have any questions. Reach out to me. My office hours, as always, are 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.